Good evening, everybody. We're here in Bixler Chapel. We have an audience. I was about to say a great audience. They are a great audience. Maybe not great in number, but have a wonderful audience with us. And we have our special guests, Bobby and Ann McElhiney. And it's just going to be a pleasure for us to get to know more about their life individually, collectively, your history at Madison, ministries that you've done. So we probably have more that we could talk about than we're going to have time for, but I'll be watching the time too. Okay. So we'll just take this casually. So we're honored to have you online as well, listening and participating in this. So Bobby and Ann, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for inviting us.
So let's just start off maybe individually, just a little bit about your background, and we're going to get to how you met.
Okay.
Because I've heard that story, and that's interesting.
Okay.
And well, your whole life is interesting. But so just one of you lead the way. Just tell us a little bit about your background. Of course, there's going to be an emphasis on your spiritual life here, too, and we'll get to all of that. But just, Ann, okay, ladies first.
Well, fortunately, I was born to parents who were Christian people, and we were the folks that were always in church Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday night, and Mother and Daddy were both active. Mother taught fourth grade girls for several years, and grew up here in Madison for the most part, and then went to Stratton Elementary, Amqui Elementary, and then Madison High School. And later, my mother died when I was 13. Daddy remarried about a year and a half later, and we moved to Inglewood, and so I went to Riverwood to church then, and that's pretty much it. It's pretty simple.
Well, and your claim to fame, I already know, at Madison High School
Right.
is...
Well, yes, I was blessed to have been selected the homecoming queen. The first one at Madison.
You married a homecoming queen.
I did. I did.
That was so sweet because I went to Madison High School the first day the doors opened. And so the class that was ahead of us, the two classes always were so close. We always had our reunions together later, but to welcome them back, to get to be the homecoming queen that welcomed them home was really a really sweet moment. And I was very blessed and fortunate to be able to do that.
Were you attending the Madison Church some during that time?
Yes.
So you started that far back.
In fact, I still have a letter from Ralph Bradley. Do you remember Ralph?
I do.
He was Sunday school teacher here then, and just congratulating me, and just a very nice, sweet letter from him, and that always, I think I still have it. It meant a lot to me.
Very good.
She also was 2 years in a row made All-State Chorus. She is very talented musically.
Here he's bragging now.
See, I did not know that. All-State Chorus.
Well, I love to sing, and was in the chorus for 3 years, and 2 of those years I got to go to Chattanooga to the All-State Chorus, and it was a beautiful event because you had voices from all over the state in this large choral group, and the singing was just outstanding. It was just beautiful. It made chill bumps go up and down my back when we all sang.
Sounds wonderful. All right, Bobby, your turn.
Okay. Actually, my parents were as well members of the Church of Christ, and I was raised in that environment. My dad actually was a kind of a lay preacher. He was a printer by trade, but on Sundays he preached in different communities. But we were actually lived in Madison for a couple of years, my 8 and 9, 10-year-old years, and we worshiped in the original building before the 500-seat chapel was built, or that basement was built. So we go back a long way.
Well, both of you have quite a history here.
Yeah, we do. And then we left and moved to East Nashville for several years, and then to Inglewood. And my growing up years were Jackson Park, that's really about it.
You went to East High School.
I went to East High School. I did.
Played baseball. Played football.
Played baseball and football. I did.
Great baseball player.
He was.
Well, you brag on
I'll
him.
have
What do
to
you know
brag
about
on
his
him.
baseball career?
He was selected All-City, and that was the MVP of the All-City team, and got a trip to St. Louis. And I can remember going to those games and watching him. He was an outfielder, and he would run and do flips and catch those balls, and I was just bursting with pride.
That's enough.
Maybe she's exaggerating a little bit.
No,
okay.
he
no,
really
he
did.
could do flips.
He really
Okay,
did.
right.
I dove after a couple.
Okay, so how did you two meet?
Well, we knew each other when we were in about 4th grade. In fact, he lived over on Old Hickory Boulevard, and I had a friend that lived on Maple, over one street over. And I would go to see her sometimes, and we would walk up the street, and he and some friends would be playing ball out in the yard, you know, and I'd just peep and look, you know. But even then, I thought he was so cute, you know, but nothing happening then. And then later, I would see him from time to time when I was in high school. In fact, I told a friend, even though I was going with someone else, I said, that's the kind of boy I want to marry, because I'd heard many good things about him. I knew of his family. And but never met or anything. Well, we graduated and I was working at National Life, and my dad would come to the Gallatin Road and pick me up at the bus stop every day and drive home. And in the meantime, his cousin went to church at Riverwood, and we'd gotten to be friends, and a boy that was in his day camp at the Y was a friend, and they kept telling me they wanted me to meet him, and I said, well, yeah, I'd like to do that, you know. So they would tell him, and they'd say, come back and say, he's going to call you this week. So, you know, I'd just wait. Every time the phone rang, I'd run. Well, that went on, and finally I thought, this is just not going to happen. So I just kind of gave up. And then one day, when Daddy picked me up, we were going down Haysboro, and all of a sudden I looked up, and there was this cute boy, and it was him. And I said, Daddy, and I wasn't a forward girl. Now, I really wasn't, and it was not usual for me to be that bold, but I thought, this may be my only chance, you know. So I said, Daddy, see that boy? That's Bobby McElhiney. His parents, you know him. His daddy's a preacher. I just had to get all that in. Stop and pick him up.
That was divine influence, or he wouldn't have stopped.
So
he wouldn't have stopped otherwise.
No.
Oh, okay.
Sure enough, he pulled over and motioned him. Bobby came and got in the car, and when he got in and he smiled, you know, his big white teeth and that pretty smile, I was smitten, as they say. And so I'll let him tell from there.
Well, Frank, you know, I was 17, and not many 17-year-old boys want to be told anything, and especially don't want to be told who they can date. So I had kind of put my cousin's request aside until I saw her that day. And she was very attractive. And she still is.
Still is.
And she still is.
You're sweet.
So I called her quickly.
All right.
I called her quickly and never had a date with anybody else after that.
Really? Okay. So that was the
it.
beginning, and that started you off. And how many years of marriage now?
62.
62.
And we had our first date on Friday the 13th. And when we decided to marry, we decided we wanted to get married on Friday the 13th because it had been so good for us.
Really?
And so we did, and it rained cats and dogs. And somebody said, that's what you get for marrying on Friday the 13th. But it was great. It was
Okay.
great.
Well, it was God's providence.
It was.
Yes.
I'm sure
I
you can
think so.
see God's providence throughout a
can.
lot of events in your life. But
Can.
Yeah.
you two getting together certainly was. All right. Okay. So then now you're a young married couple, and do you start coming to Madison? Or how
No,
did
we
you
were
get here?
we went to Jackson Park. We lived in Inglewood, and we went to Jackson Park for about 3 years, and then we had a cousin or two who was going to church at Old Center, and they had asked us to come over there. And at the time we lived in the general area, so we were there for about 5 years.
Oh.
and we came to Madison in 1969.
1969.
Yeah.
Now, okay, what motivated you to come in 1969?
Well, we were actually. I was a deacon there where we were, and we were not making much progress. And we had about 100 people. And so one day in a little meeting, I suggested that we sell the building and give it to mission work, and everybody go to Goodlettsville. And there was another congregation over there in Madison. You know, that did not go over well.
Okay.
So we didn't leave mad, but, you know, sometime after. And but this time we were living in Neely's Bend. So.
Okay, so it was natural.
Yes, it was.
To come here to Madison.
Plus, we had 2 young children,
that.
and we were driving right by Madison to go to Old Center, and we just said, you know, this doesn't really make sense. We need to. We knew they had a good program here for the children, and so we changed and have been happy ever since here.
Okay. All right. You've been involved in many ministries here, I know.
Mm-hmm.
All right. What are some of the ministries you have been involved with? Well, you could give quite a catalog of that, but what pops to mind that has been meaningful to you? Prison ministry, maybe?
Yeah. Before that, we were involved in bus ministry here. We were, we worked with putting together the first bus ministry here at Madison.
All right. You were the deacon over the bus ministry.
I was. And we had 4 big school buses. And we did that for, I don't remember how long, Frank, 2 years, 3 years. Mm-hmm. And we brought the children in, and we were going to the projects down in East Nashville and picking up children. And Mrs. Garner taught that little group. We took them over here in the building at the side, which was, it's gone now, but it was behind the post office. But she taught that little group. Okay. And we did that for a while. And then when Lytle started the inner city ministry, we saw this as a chance to make some progress in a different direction. So we gave him the 4 big buses that we had, and then they started coming to here. So Ann and I were also involved in teaching them for a while here.
See, I guess I did not realize you, all of us were that involved in starting inner city because we gave them the buses.
Right.
Yeah, we did. Yeah. And of course, Ann has been involved in Meal on Wheels for, I guess, 40 years, and she was a cook in Meal on Wheels. And
We used to cook for a week at a time. It was Janet probably remembers that, but it was a lot of fun. I had a good friend, and we'd cook all week long and then deliver a meal usually. But it was really an enjoyable thing to do because you got to spend time with a good friend, and you also got to meet a lot of great people.
You cooked and you delivered.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder how many decades Meals on Wheels has been ongoing.
didn't you say? Ask Janet.
I don't know, Janet. Do you know when?
Yeah.
Since the 60s.
Mm-hmm.
I think.
Yeah.
All right. And then prison ministry.
Yeah. We started. Harold and Helen Cox asked us. We got here in '69 and 70 or 71, probably 70, because they recruited. They were good at this, and they are the foundation of the prison ministry for this church, Harold and Helen Cox. Mm-hmm. And they asked us to go to the women's prison with them one Sunday, I think a month, and we went. I did not want to go in there, and I did not. But we went. We just I kind of bit my lip and went, and it just kind of grows on you. And that was.
So for decades, you did prison ministry.
Yeah, we have. Ann and I have done a lot of things with the women together. I've done other things with the men, but she and I went to, and by the way, Gordon Lyons is a stalwart in that. He's
a great
The
help.
3 of us worked at women's prison for worship on one Sunday a month for 20 years, I guess. And we have just stopped. COVID stopped us, and we have not gone back. We made that decision. But as I said, when it started. But
well, what would you do? Would you you'd have a worship service?
We did some things with the women
at the jail.
At the jail, we taught for 3 years. We taught an anger management class at the jail for women. The jail is a hard place to go. It's people who are in the jail want to be sentenced. If they're going to be sentenced, want to get into the prison quickly. The prisons are better places, the state prisons, than the jails.
Well, I've heard that.
Yeah, they are.
That's counterintuitive, but the jails are harder than the prisons.
Yeah, it's so much disruption there, and instability, and they never know what's going to happen when. And one woman, one dear lady stayed there 3 years and finally got to court. They don't have any money, so it's hard to hire a lawyer. And they had accused her of abusing her children. She hadn't. And that's a sad story. We still remember her.
You hear a lot of those.
And then we, for years, we went to the women's prison on Wednesday, I think. And we went to the lockdown unit. That doesn't mean they couldn't get out of a cell, but it means that they could roam within that building, but they couldn't get out of that building to take meals or anything else out of that building. So they were people being punished for one reason or another. And we actually know, I don't know, maybe you saw this week the paper, Krista Pike. Mm-hmm. We actually know Krista. We've seen her and talked to her.
She's on death row. Mm-hmm. She's the only.
I remember that name, but you have had influence upon thousands, hundreds, thousands.
I don't know.
One thing I remember when we were at the jail, and we really enjoyed doing that because we got to see them every week. We went every Wednesday and were there with them for about, an hour and a half, I think, or two. Mm-hmm. So we really got to know them, that you had pretty much the same ones. And so we had a good time with them. We had fun, and we tried to make it interesting and fun for them. And when we had the little graduation at the end, which you have to take everything, nothing open, it has to be, enclosed and sealed to take in. But I'll never forget one of the young women came up to me, and she had tears running down her cheek, and she said, "I just want you to know how much it means to see a real love between a couple." And that's always stayed with me, because she came from a home where her mother left when she was young, and her father was not a good father, and those kinds of things stay with me. It's the people you meet that really stay.
There's a story behind most people who are incarcerated.
Mm-hmm.
And I know you both have gotten to know a lot of people individually that you have kept track of over the years.
Yeah, we still do.
And trying to help once they get out as well.
Right.
Frank, I was a volunteer chaplain at Charles Bass for 10 years, maybe, I don't know. Charles Bass was closed in 2015. And then I went to DeBerry, which is a hospital prison. But there are an awful lot of people in the prison at DeBerry who are not sick, but who do the work there. And so that was a good experience. And I had the run of those prisons. I could go anywhere in there and didn't have to tell anybody, other than to show my badge when I came. Mm-hmm. That makes it a whole lot easier, to perform what you want to. And that was it was rewarding. It really was.
Well, thank you for sharing about that. All right, let's move on. You become an elder.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us about that. You were the youngest elder.
I was. 1978. Mm-hmm. That was kind of a scary thing, really. You always think and pray about those sorts of things, and then you wonder, you really shouldn't have done this. But it worked out, Frank. I was younger in a lot of, I guess because of my age, that was attractive to a lot of younger people. So I had contact with...
You got to know a lot of young families and
families,
younger people.
Younger people.
And you got personally involved again. I know it wasn't just making decisions. It was a lot of personal involvement with the lives of people.
He was very dedicated, and I don't have to say that because I was on the side where I could see the amount of time and prayer and effort he put into being an elder. And he was, in my estimation, of course, a very good one, but a very dedicated elder.
That goes. That elders' wives are also special people, and we pray for you and your fellow elders and your wives by name, because I know how hard it is.
That's very much appreciated.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Right. Well, there's a lot we could talk about that. Let's bring the children into the picture now. So Tommy and Melanie.
Yeah. And James.
and James, which that's another story.
It is.
But so tell us about the children.
Yeah. Well, Tommy was our firstborn.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, we were excited, as all new parents were or are. But he was a joy. He was active. He was, as he grew up, he was like a friend of his wife said, a character with character.
He had a lot of personality.
He did.
He did.
He really did.
And he wasn't hesitant about showing it.
I remember one time when he was, early teens, I guess, and he used to love to tease me and fool me. And we had some stairs going from our kitchen down into our living room. I was at the other end of the house, and I heard this big noise and heard him holler. And I come running through the house, and he's laying down in the living room, and this red looks like blood all over him. And I'm just going berserk, you know. And he said, and I'm trying to see what's wrong and all this. And all of a sudden, he jumps up and says, "I gotcha." And then I could have turned him over my lap and worn him out.
You should have.
But he was a funny guy. He was.
Well, let's bring this up. Of course, Tommy got sick, and that was obviously a very difficult time for everybody, and then passed away from his illness. But can you tell us about that experience?
Yeah, we can. Tommy had not been well for about the day that I'm going to describe to you was the 17th of August in 2000. Tommy had not been well since about April. We saw that his color wasn't good, and the doctor kept doing other things, but they were not getting to the root of his problem. So they ordered an endoscopy, and I took him that morning because Audrey had a commitment at school, and we're thinking, he's got an ulcer. That'd be kind of the extent of that. So I went in, and then when it seemed like it was a little long time, but I was sitting there working. I just took things with me from my job, and I had a little desk in there, and I was working. And then the doctor came in, and he said, I need to see you. So he took me in there beside Tommy's bed, and there was a screen, a monitor above his head on that bed. And he said, "Do you see that right there, that little spot?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "That's cancer. You could have hit me in the stomach with a bowling ball." And I said, "Are you sure?" He said, "We'll know tomorrow." And it was. It was cancer of the stomach right under the esophagus. He was a tough guy.
He was 38 at the time.
38.
And it hit me because my mother was 38 when she died. And it was sort of deja vu. It was, sort of, this is again.
There were a lot of good things that happened during all of that, Frank, but he had a good physician who treated him, an oncologist named Dr. Skip Burris at Centennial. And he is a family friend. We have his cell number right now. Mm-hmm. And then Ann's had a couple of bouts of cancer, and he treated her until he just stopped this past year, seeing her once a year. So it was, as I said, he's part of the family. But nevertheless, he did all he could. I was, the Bible talks about, it says you can pray boldly, and that's the King James Version. NIV says with confidence. So I was praying both boldly and with confidence, and actually tried to negotiate with the Lord on that. But it worked a little bit. I said, you gave Hezekiah 15 years. Give Tommy 15 years.
And how many years?
9.5.
9.5 years of cancer.
He did. Mm-hmm.
But part of that time, he was, for about 5 years, he was,
4,
he did well. It was in remission, and it was really right when he went back for his 5-year checkup, and then they found some spots on his colon. And from then, it was just kind of downhill.
Yeah, it was pretty tough after that.
But our dear daughter-in-law, we got to say something about Audrey. She's like a daughter to us. we could not have asked for anybody to have been better to him, waited on him. And she is not the type that likes blood and gore or any of that, but she gave him injections. She hooked up all kinds of lines. She did everything that had to be done. And we love her dearly and always will. She's remarried. Kevin Dunaback, which used to come here, and they are happy, and we're so happy for her, because I told her she was the answer to prayer when Tommy met her. I'd been praying for her for a long while. And then Kevin was the answer to prayer, because we'd prayed that the Lord would find somebody good for Audrey, because she was such a great person. We never wanted her to live the rest of her life alone. So that the Lord just works everything out beyond my imagination, but it's good.
The last 6 months of his life, one of us, either she, Audrey, or Ann or me, were there with him. See, I had retired just not too long before, fully retired. I was kind of semi, but I quit it altogether. Yeah. And so we could spend, and did spend, those days and months with him.
Lots of good time with him. We had lots of good time.
I mean, I can only imagine what that would have been like, but I mean, just how it would affect parents spiritually to see your child suffering at times, I'm sure suffering, and then to die. And you were praying for his health, but you were also praying for God's will to be done.
Yeah. We did learn to give him shots, didn't we?
We did. I think,
Morphine.
Frank, it helped me identify with how God must have felt to give up his son in such a cruel way. We didn't have to do that. Tommy didn't have to suffer like that. But I think he just realized that your life is not different from anybody else's, really. We all have to go through heartache and grief and trials, and that was one of our hardest ones.
I've never seen you two express any bitterness or anger.
No, because God was there all the time.
Yeah.
He helped us through it. I mean, I don't think he ever promised us that we wouldn't go through hard times, but he did promise us he would go through it with us, and we always felt that he was there.
You know, I sort of have to kind of select something, pick out something to occupy my mind. And in, I don't know how many months it was before he died. It wasn't too many, but one day, those days, it was my day there. And we got to talking, and he said, you know, Daddy, when people die, they are remembered for a while, and then that memory just sort of fades away. And that's true, Frank, in most cases, unless it's a close relative. And I said, yeah, Tom, I think so, but let me tell you what I'm going to do. I said, I will never forget you. I had helped him coach our youngest grandson's baseball team about 3 or 4 years before, and they had taken a picture of Tom and me, and the youngest and the oldest, too, were all in this one picture, uniforms, baseball uniform. And he had given that to me at Father's Day or something. I said, Tom, you know a picture of you and me and Josh and Peyton from playing baseball? He said, yeah. He said, it's a good picture, isn't it? I said, it is. I said, I am going to take that, and Frank, I'm going to take that and scan it, put it in my computer, and I'm going to put it on my screensaver. And every morning, I'm going to get up and speak to you. And he said, I like that. And I do.
Every morning you see his face and you speak to him.
And our daughter, we'll go to Melanie.
We talk about Melanie, yes.
Melanie is single, and she lives downtown and works for the Board of Education. She works as an advocate for homeless children.
I admire her very much for that.
We do too, and she has always loved children. Grew up here taking care of half of the congregation's children, babysitting, and just loved them. And she's always loved children. She's always been on the side, usually, of the underdog. So she has a real heart for these children and does what she can to help them get located in school, bus transportation, supplies, uniforms, and then she tries to help their parents know what resources they have available. And anything she can, and she's good at it.
But now she's sick.
She is.
See?
She has acute leukemia. And it's not as bad as it could be. This was a month ago when she was diagnosed. And her stage is 0. So that's, if you got to have it, that's the kind to have. But right now, her only treatment is they take blood every 3 months, and they scan her again every 6 months. But she's handled it really well.
And the doctor said, with this type of leukemia, you can live for years, you know. In fact, one friend said, a friend of hers had it, and the doctor said, you've got old man's leukemia, they call it, because generally you can live to be an old person with it. So we're, you know, if you've got to have leukemia, we're grateful it's that kind. She just has to be careful about infections, colds, that kind of thing, because her immune system is compromised.
Okay, so I've got to ask. All right, so 2 children with cancer.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think?
Frank, I don't know. Ann's had it twice.
And Ann as well.
So
It's all through our family. I mean, you know, both of my parents died with it. My brother died with it. Aunts, uncles. It's just, in fact, when the children were small, at one point they said, somebody else had gotten cancer in our family, and they said, Mother, does this mean we're going to die with cancer? And I said, well, it may, because some people die with diabetes, some people have heart disease. Our family has cancer, so it's just in our genes, I think. And so not
pray,
good
pray
genes.
is all you can do.
Just pray and
Right.
Yeah.
keep positive like you two do.
Right.
And you know, we only have one day. I mean, we all have the same amount of time. One day, I was staying with Tommy, and we were talking about death, and I said, Tommy, really, you and I have the same amount of time we have today. I said, I could leave you today and get killed going home in a wreck. And I said, so all we've got is today, and that's really all we can handle. And the Lord knew that. That's why he told us, just don't worry about tomorrow. You know, just take today.
That is easier said than done.
But you know, if you worry too far ahead, you'd really take the joy away from today by delving into what may happen tomorrow or what happened yesterday. So really, it's just it just makes sense to just worry about today.
Well, you two are able to do what a lot of people just talk about. I mean, to live with joy in spite of tragic circumstances in life.
We're looking ahead, Frank. We're looking ahead.
You're looking ahead to heaven? Is
Yes.
that what you're
Yes.
referring to?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it's a choice,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think. I mean, why choose to
choice.
be glum and morose and sad all the time when you can choose to be happy and joyful and choose the good things in life? I think it's a waste, frankly, of energy, emotional and mental energy, and just why not go with the...
I've always admired your
positives.
attitudes towards life. And,
Well, thank you, Frank.
Well, you know, when you realize that you are the daughter and the son of the creator of the universe, and there's not anything too hard for him, he can work it all out. So why do we need to be so caught up in worry and concern when if we just wait on him, he can work it out, and he will work it out. It may not be like we want it to be worked out, but in the end, it will be for the best.
well, both of you speak with credibility because you've been down the hard road. So there's substance to what you say. It's not just theoretical. You live it out.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I remember when my mother died, and I was 13. It's funny how certain things come to you, but there was a scripture I'd heard her use, and it kept coming. It's become one of my favorite, and that's Romans 8:28.
Mine too.
All things work together for good for those who love the Lord and are called according to his purpose. And I would say that to myself. And I think I think I learned early on as a young girl to trust him, because on every hand I could see what we needed was always taken care of. People would either bring food in or they'd help in some way. You know, there was always somebody to fill whatever need we had. And I just learned to trust him.
You learn to trust him. And your experiences validate that. So you don't have a question in your mind about that. You know it's true.
I do know
You can
it's
trust him because you've seen it happen time and time again.
I guess Tommy helped us an awful lot with that. He had a positive attitude, a good spirit all through that.
And what about the other, I shouldn't say other young man?
James.
Yeah, we had a foster son, James.
I've heard you mention him, but you consider him like a son.
Yeah, he was. James was with us for 8 years, and he actually died at 40 himself. He was a diabetic.
He was diabetic.
So it's
James was a sweet spirit. He, a friend of ours, worked with the Department of Welfare or Human Services, and had met him and wanted his parents to take him in their home, but they were older. They didn't have any children at home, and they were friends of ours, and so they called and said, "Okay, you may be mad at us, but we have suggested you all to be a foster parent for this boy." And so we said, well, you know, we'd been thinking about really doing something like that. So we went to meet him, and he had such a sweet spirit. And he was 10 years old at the time. And Melanie, I remember, she was younger, and she carried him a lollipop, and he always remembered that. From then on, he remembered her doing that. But we all loved James, and he was mentally, I'd say, challenged in a way. He had very low IQ.
Oh.
He was in special ed, and so there were a lot of things that he had to adapt to. He came from a family that was sad background, lots of, in fact, he had been with us just for 2 or 3 weeks, and when he got a call from someone in his family that somebody had stabbed somebody else, and so we had to get that all worked out. But he was just a sweet spirit, and so he was with us for 8 years, and we taught him. James became a Christian while he was with us, and I think of a funny story with James. If we've got time, I'll tell you.
Okay.
We would have a devotional with the children in the evening, and we found out James was very good at pulling the wool over your eyes.
James was very good at lying.
More bluntly.
We found out after
Right.
it took us a year, but he was actually pretty much a habitual liar. We had just been gullible and believed it all. But a few phone calls from the teacher, and we found out differently. And so we decided that one night for a devotional, Bobby was going to read the story of Ananias and Sapphira. Well, in the meantime, I have to preface this with that. Melanie was still sucking her thumb. She had not started to school yet, and we had tried everything, but nothing worked. And so we had finally said, okay, we'd bribe her. If you won't suck your thumb today, you'll get a quarter. And so we were giving her every day. We'd say, now, did you suck your thumb today? She'd give her a quarter. So Bobby was reading this story about Ananias and Sapphira and how they fell over dead because they lied. And James was just sitting there taking it all in. And Melanie was snuffing, and we said, well, honey, what's the matter? And she said, well, you know, you've been giving me quarters because I didn't suck my thumb. But she said, I lied. So bless her heart, she got the lesson. It went over James's head, but Melanie got it. So.
Yeah, good story. Well, and I was thinking of something else that you two have been involved with. That you were involved with the domestic violence shelter.
I was, and I enjoyed that. It was hard in a lot of ways and sad, but at the same time, you got to meet some women and you felt like that you were, in a way, helping them somewhat. And there again, Melanie, one of the women we had there was married to a minister. And she had 3 lovely little girls. But he had been abusive at home. And Melanie had met one of the girls at school. Melanie was a counselor at the school at the time.
Whites Creek.
At Whites Creek. And so the girl opened up to her and told her. And so Melanie told us the story then, and we were able to help get them into our shelter, and then afterwards help them get a duplex over in Old Hickory. And those girls were smart, sweet as could be, and so was the mother. And she went on to finish her degree, and we don't know where they are now. I'd like to know where a lot of these people are, but it was just a good time to meet people and get to know their stories. And you always come out thinking, wow, how blessed I am. You know, how did I get to have the life I have, and they have the one they have. But it was a lot of good people I met there.
Well, I know so many people that you've impacted, and I probably know that much, but I hear stories too of what you two individually and collectively have done. But got to be looking at the time here, but let's talk about spiritual disciplines.
Okay.
Like, you two stay strong spiritually, and that's what
we try
want.
to.
And you do. And how do you do that? I mean, I know there's spiritual discipline involved. What do you do to help yourselves spiritually?
I think we help each other in what we do, Frank. We read the Bible on a regular basis. We pray on a regular basis. We pray together, actually.
Don't you get up early and do your...
For a long time I did, yes. And I'm not getting up as early now as I did. But yes, I got up in the morning for an hour and studied and prayed.
And he has memorized, how many scriptures do you have?
Few.
A lot. And this has been for years. And he goes over them regularly every few days or at least once a week to keep them all fresh in his mind. And I'm a believer in what David said. I have hidden thy word in my heart that I might not sin against thee. I think knowing the word helps you guide your life. It helps you keep from making bad choices sometimes. And not that we haven't. We have made our share. But I think when you've got a scripture comes to mind and you're in the throes of deciding something, it helps you go in the right direction. It just guides you. And
it was time well spent, though, over the years. And it still is, just a different time.
I was going to share something Melanie said to me the other day that I thought was so sweet, and I thought, I'm not going to forget this. We were talking about a young woman who had died, and the probable cause was an overdose. But she had children. She was a lovely person, and I was just bemoaning the fact that she had to die so young and leave the children. And Melanie said, well, she was a lovely soul, but she just didn't know it. And that stayed with me because as I look back at our work at the prison and all, so many of those people were lovely souls, but they just didn't know it because they didn't know their Father. And that's what makes us all have value and worth.
Frank, our spiritual walk has been influenced so much by people here. And that's it for gosh, how long? 60 years?
I guess, yeah. Let's do it.
60 years.
50 years maybe.
Yeah, all the people that you have known
60,
here.
40. About 60.
That you have influenced and they've influenced
They've influenced
you.
us, yeah. Going back to a lot of, Brother Dunkelberger, Brother Roard.
I just feel like God uses us, uses all of you folks. I think when he needs somebody and he knows there's somebody there that's available and ready and willing, he'll use you to do what he wants done. And so I don't feel like it's us. I really feel like it's God using us.
People who are open to Him, He uses.
Right.
And you two have been open to Him, and He's
Provided us
used
opportunities.
you too well. Yeah.
Hopefully.
Well,
There have been times I've been stubborn. Still is. But
well, we all battle our human tendencies, but you two have been mentors to me. That's definitely true through the years, all the years.
that means
we've been
we're
married.
old, doesn't it, Frank?
I wasn't thinking that. Well, I'm old. I guess so. Okay. But no, seriously, you two have been quite strong in your help to me. You're models to me, role models to me, both of you.
Thank you.
Thank
So
you.
I always think about you as being my spiritual mentors here.
Thank you.
Thank
So it's
you.
been an honor to talk to you and just hear more. I always learn more every time we talk about how to live a good life.
God has been good to us.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you for sharing. So we better stop here. Let me say a word of blessing,
Okay.
and we'll close. Dear Father in heaven, we just from spending these minutes together, all the reminders of how you work in lives and how you bless people, even in the tragic circumstances, you still bless people and you still give us joy no matter what. And we just hold tight to you. Thank you for Bobby and Ann and the 62 years of marriage they've experienced, and before then, the relationship that they've been able to build, the legacy that they have built through their children and grandchildren, and just pray that you'll continue to bless them and use them like you have. And we thank you for the Madison Church that's been mentioned and how influential for many it's been, thousands throughout the years in so many ways. And thank you that we've been a part of this church family. And so we just end thanking you for the blessings that you give us as we live each day. We ask all of this through our Savior. Amen.
Thank you, Frank.
Thank you for being here. And we'll be back next week. Rusty will be back, and we'll have another guest, and we look forward to our time together. Thank you.